All right, welcome back. I am Paul Stewart.
And I am Brian Wright in Speaker Studio. It's awesome to be back in here. Stoked.
We're doing it today. And if you're watching on YouTube, check out Brian's got his Wright Stew hat on. He's got the merch on. So when you're out walking in public with this thing on, are you getting a lot of good feedback? Or are people like, what is this?
Well, I don't know about that. You get a lot of, you don't get a lot of anything. But you do get, like, I've had a couple of kids, right? We coach our kids.
Yeah.
They're like, hey, you got a podcast? And then I get some people's like, right, obviously that's your name, Stu, what's that? So, yeah, it gives you a chance. It's almost like evangelism, right?
Okay, yeah.
It's like, hey, if you wear a Jesus shirt or whatever, you know, we're evangelizing, you know, the Wright Stu podcast, spreading the word, spreading the word.
I've actually helped start a church, did a church plant, and yeah, a lot of knocking on doors and trying to get people through the doors. They say that's the toughest part of a church is getting people through the doors.
And our biggest part is getting people to press a couple buttons and listen.
Absolutely. So if you're out there, you like what we're doing, make sure you're telling other people about it. We'll give you a 50 for 15 update here at the end of this, but we appreciate you listening, certainly do. But make sure you go check out the merch.
Yeah,
I would love for you to be wearing some Wright Stew podcast stuff around town. And then, make sure you're sharing those with others. But, Brian, if you believe this or not, Brian and I text quite a bit during the day. A lot of it's just kind of nonsense, a lot of sports-related stuff. And
it's really how this started, which is kind
of how it started,
we were texting, and then eventually I only have so many texts about a certain conversation in me. And then I'm like, dude, I'm just going to call. I was one of those guys when text first started that's like, I'm not texting. This is stupid. I was anti-text.
Well, you had to hit the 2 button 3 times.
Right, you got to get it 13 times to get to the whatever.
Yeah, then you miss it and wrap around. Yeah.
And so I was like, I'm not texting. And
for you young folks out there, the struggle was real when texting, yeah.
But now, if it goes too long, I'm like, hey, let's just talk on the phone. We can have a much more fluid conversation.
Yeah.
Voice to text, as you would imagine, sometimes my phone doesn't love my accent, so voice and text don't always come across great.
Yeah, Brian says some really crazy things sometimes, and I've learned to translate the Brian Wright voice
vernacular.
to text.
Yeah.
So interesting there, but I sent Brian one recently. Something popped up about Joel Embiid. So Joel Embiid has missed 400 games in his career while earning $266 million. And in 10 and a half seasons has played in 446. So essentially, or effectively, has missed half of his career.
I think the big thing out of that is, and we hadn't looked into this, I don't think, or maybe Paul has, he's really good with this stuff, but like how many have been true injuries, because I know he's had some knee injuries, and how many have been load management. That's kind of a modern day term, but it's used a lot, it's thrown around a lot. Because if you're truly hurt, nobody blames you for missing when you're truly hurt. People get frustrated whenever, you're not willing to play a back-to-back or you got a big game. And so, it's definitely,
definitely thing out there. And load management, like I said, that is a new term. And a lot of players, LeBron is always we always kind of get to the top of the mountain, but he's a prime case for, he's legitimately played 2 or 3 extra seasons
and he played
in the postseason.
20 plus years, dude. He's nearly 40, started at 18.
Yeah.
I think he's kind of the example of why it works, right? You extend the guys like that career. Take care of your body. Take care of your nutrition. Work out to become a better basketball player, not to get just stronger. And do some load management. I kind of think he's the example of it working, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. But on the flip side, I mentioned that, during one of our podcasts, I went to a Lakers Charlotte Hornets game, 5 or 6 years ago.
Yeah.
And if LeBron wasn't playing, I would have been, pretty upset. Yeah. And I was a grown man, but that's
who you want to see,
that's
right?
That's who the star was. Yeah. And I told you, like, Julius Peppers was there. A lot of, kind of Charlotte royalty was there. And, which is basically Panther players and a couple others. But a lot of people were around. And had LeBron not played, it would have been a different vibe in the stadium for sure.
Well, I saw where like Zion Williams, he is not allowed by the Pelicans to play back-to-back games, which is, he's had a ton of injuries. Yeah. Really big.
He looks like a linebacker or a defensive end out. He's a giant.
Phenomenal athlete, but great bounce. I think he may be the exception to the rule. Like, he would have been better off playing
tight
football.
End, defensive end, yeah.
He would have had less injuries playing football than he does basketball. There's a lot of mamas out there. It's like, no, my kid ain't playing football.
Yeah.
You know, it's too late. I think he would have been better off playing football. He may have been. I mean, how much force do you have to produce? You remember when he was playing in that game?
He ripped his shoe.
Blew out his shoe. I mean, that's just the amount of force going through his feet.
Or maybe one of those tiny little workers didn't like quite sew it up right with their.
Maybe. I would imagine.
Are they still doing sweatshop stuff? I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, I haven't seen any shoe manufacturing around here. So I'm saying there's probably a good chance they're made. Maybe not in China anymore. Maybe they went to Venezuela. Maybe Thailand. Maybe somewhere.
Mix it up.
Yeah. So maybe somebody did miss a stitch in that case.
Yeah, poor Zion.
But yeah. So.
But you're right. So I think part of the difference. So we hear load management. We see guys sitting out, and again, there's a lot of money invested in the players.
Yeah.
But on the flip side, there's a lot of money invested by the fans who are paying the players essentially, and. There's some
numbers are way down this year.
And you can afford to go see one game in person, and you drive from Raleigh to Charlotte's 3 hours, and
got to come back,
and you got to come back, and you buy the popcorn and the sodas and whatever it is while you're there. It's like, man, at the end of it, you're spending.
It's probably a $500.
I'll say minimum 500 to 1,000 depending on
how you do it.
Yeah. That's a pretty big investment for a lot of people. It's like, man, if you go do that, you want to see. The best players. And I think the other big thing is there's the old school versus new school mentality where, guys like Michael Jordan and Larry Bird and Magic Johnson and Isaiah Thomas and all these guys were playing through injury, through pain.
Yeah.
And that was kind of their mindset.
Through hangovers.
And Joe DiMaggio, way back, and they famously said, like, they asked him, why do you run through first base? Why do you hustle so much every time? Yeah. And he said, because there's somebody in the stands who's seen me play for the first time, and I want their impression of me to be, I played my hardest all the time. Like, that's what he wanted his reputation and his brand to be. And so I get it. Like in the NBA, you're going to walk up the court sometimes. So you don't expect somebody sprinting. That's just stupid. But at the same time, you expect, what's the best ability? Availability, right? But now it's not even that because guys are healthy, sitting, and we're baseball guys, and it's happened in baseball
a lot. Yeah,
yeah. But there's a little difference.
Well, it's built into the culture. I would say going back to basketball. I mean, the only thing that I think right now as a product, and let's say the NBA is a product.
Yeah,
it's not meeting the fan expectation, right? When
I
you
would agree.
See, like, I really think if they could, like, almost schedule it like PTO.
Yeah.
If they could schedule it out and be like, hey, Zion's not going to play this date, it would affect ticket prices.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
But, you would know he was going to play the next games. And when you go in there, you get what you expect. And so if you are doing load management as an organization, you should have to send that in at the beginning of the year. Or at least maybe
a month ahead
week
of time,
or a month.
Ahead, yeah.
A
year would be a bit much because you.
But I feel like they're scheduling it like Zion. You already know he's expressed. It probably was public in the NBA circles, but he will not play back to back. So clearly they had planned that before the season started.
That's crazy.
But baseball, like you mentioned, it's kind of been built in. We were talking about Pete earlier yesterday or today, and
Pete Alonso,
yeah. And so, he played 162 last year, but that's the exception to the rule.
Yeah.
Cal Ripken was the Iron Man because he played every day. He's the exception.
It was a big deal.
Yeah.
Well, but the difference in baseball and basketball too, and baseball's playing every day. You get like one off day a week.
Yeah.
And NBA, you're playing 2 or maybe 3 games a week.
Yeah.
And so there's not as many games. You're getting off days in between. You're getting a couple of off. They do play back to backs. I get that.
Yeah.
But you're an elite athlete. Play 2 days in a row, right? It's not that tough.
So let's argue both sides. Obviously, I tend to agree with you because you think about the steel worker, or you think about anybody. Me and you go to work every day, right? And some days we don't really want to, and so.
Yeah. But you got to give it your best, right? I mean, yeah, in theory, yeah. But here's the other thing with baseball, right? And basketball. So again, we're using the best of the best, and LeBron's always the example. But name your best player from your best team, and if they take a day off, you're not replacing that player in the NBA because they're 20%. In theory, 20% of the people. Well, they are 20% of the person on the floor,
probably more,
but scoring and defensively and distribution, like they're much more, right?
Yeah.
Whereas in baseball, you've got 8 position players. And so we'll use Bryce Harper as an example. If Bryce Harper's not playing first base for the Phillies one day, whoever replaces him probably isn't that big of a I mean, overall through the course of the season,
year, he is. But one game,
that backup could go 3 for 4 with a home run, right? Or the person could go 0 for 4, but so could Bryce Harper, right?
Right.
So you're not losing as much, right? And
I think again. Only thing, and I'll argue the other side is, as knowledge has gotten better, nutrition's gotten better, workout plans have not, all athletes aren't doing the same workouts. Depends on what sport, what they need to work on, their body type. They're all kind of doing different things. You got people like Wemby down in San Antonio. I mean, there weren't people like Wemby, right? 7'4", running around like used to you'd have Mutombo, and he was flirting with that size,
but he was in the post. He
was kind of. Now Wemby's going. So I feel like athletes are kind of evolving a little bit.
Well, I think the European basketball has really taken over the Euro ball, kind of positionless. Yeah. 5 people doing the same thing, moving around.
And Joker and no sky. And so only thing I would say is you don't ask you don't ask a thoroughbred to go back-to-back days, right? And so
I don't know this to be true. I don't know. Maybe they just want to run, Brian. Just run. That's what horses do.
If you do, they end up tweaking an ankle. They shoot them. They turn them into dog food. And
do they have to do that? Like I know that's like you always say, they're glue. Now they're. Do they have to shoot them? Are they in that much pain? Can't you give them
I'm not
a
horse
prosthetic?
man. I don't think they're doing prosthetics for animals. The money in that is for them to win a couple races.
Yeah,
and then they become
and
breeders.
They breed them. Which seems like a pretty good life if you're a male horse, right?
But if you're not a winner, and say you're a habitual second or third place finisher, I would say your after retirement life isn't as good.
People love horses. I'm not a horse.
Have you been around them much?
No, they scare me. I don't want to be around them. They're so big. Like,
I know
some people love horses.
They're really, I think they're really neat animals. Rode them a little bit when I was a kid.
I've never come close to riding a horse. No.
And so, but I do that. They cost a lot of money to maintain. You got to get them, farrier to be able to do the feet,
hooves and stuff. Yeah.
But dude, I think they could sense your energy. Being unsure, so they probably felt unsure.
I don't like most animals. They're animals. Like I don't like.
You like to eat your animals.
I like eating chickens and cows. Like cows don't bother me because they're not. I can outrun a cow.
I don't know. I think we probably.
I see some cows get moving pretty good too. Like dogs, I'm always unsure of dogs.
Oh, no, I am unsure of dog. I had twin little cocker spaniels, supposed to be cocker spaniels, short hair cocker. I don't think we got. Anyway, I had a dog that. I mean, for its entire life until it eventually got ran over because we didn't used to have all these inside dogs.
Yeah.
Dude, it wouldn't let me rub it. Like I would go down and rub it, and it would look at me like, "Hey, I'm more dominant," and he would snap at me. Yeah. I had Bo and Luke. My brother's dog was Luke.
The Duke was,
and mine was Bo, and Bo did not like me.
No Uncle Jesse or Daisy.
No. I mean,
I was a big Dukes of Hazzard fan growing
up. I was too.
Great names, for a dog.
But
horse. I did go to the horse races a couple times in Phoenix.
Yeah, but you probably enjoyed that, though, right?
I enjoyed the horse races. Those were fun. Used to love going to the dog tracks, too. That's illegal now. People do not like to hear that. But the dogs...
It was fun,
That's a great time. That's a
great
evening. $20 bet on the dogs. Yeah,
and I know they probably weren't treated right.
They weren't treated great.
But we didn't know. I didn't know they weren't treated right.
I thought they loved running.
Yeah, I thought
chasing that rabbit.
But back to so you're anti.
So
you're anti-science is what we're getting to.
Hate science. Yeah, just let's go flat Earth again. Let's make that all happen. So there's a few. The one prominent example for me is Steven Strasburg.
Yeah,
he came in as like the next era of pitching. He's going to dominate. He's going to do it, and he was a very good pitcher, right?
Yeah.
couple Cy Young, close, not winners, but close. But white glove treatment. They took care of them. They limited pitches.
They were in that playoff run.
They were in the playoff run early on, and they shut them down. They're like,
I couldn't believe it.
And they were like, we're going to win more pennants in the future. We don't need it. And they did win a World Series, but it took them like 6 or 7 more years to get there. And if you're in a race, man, they did it a little with Paul Skeens this year too.
Yeah.
And I don't think they weren't in a race. The Pirates weren't.
Yeah, in Pittsburgh, I don't feel like they can hang on to their guys. They need to pretend like the end of their life is at 5 years or whatever, and be done with it, because they're never. I mean, Paul Skeens is going to be a $300 million guy, maybe. I mean, who knows?
He's going to be $1 billion. He'll be the first $1 billion guy.
I mean, very well may be.
Get him back to hitting a little bit too.
Yeah. I mean, he could swing it back in his day.
Yeah. So Strasburg though, they white gloved him. They took care of him. More off days. He still kept getting hurt. Yeah. So he eventually, to his credit, he did lead the league in innings pitched one year at 209. Had a couple of 200+ inning seasons. But if you look back just 25 years, like you had 3 guys on your staff who were going 200+ innings. Like that was kind of the minimum expectation. So again, that's one of those things for low management. I understand pitching; it's different, right? You're putting on the small tendons and muscles, but in basketball, again, it goes back to a little bit of we're the millionaire. They're the millionaires. They're the flying on luxury planes, taking care of the best you possibly can, and then there's the guy who is out working on the side of the road digging ditches. Yeah, and he doesn't want to hear that.
And I don't disagree with you. The only thing I'd say is that there's a reason.
Well, here's the thing: it kills the regular season too.
Oh, it does. Well, I think the playoffs. This might be a different argument for a different time, but I think the playoffs are probably too long. 8 teams from each conference makes it.
Well, it's like 12 teams now because they've added those extra.
Oh yeah, they had
10 teams, whatever it is.
So I think you kind of get to a point where you have devalued the regular season so much.
And even the first round of the playoffs is kind of
it definitely
garbage.
Makes sense that all you need to do is get in, and you got to be healthy when the playoffs start.
Yeah.
And so I think the league has kind of put themselves in this position. The numbers are way down, though. I've heard like 40% down viewership. I think it's more than just guys not happy about who's playing and who's not playing. I think it's more politics have gotten involved. I think people haven't liked some of the opinions that players have put out there at times and kind of shunned. I mean, based on the last election, shunned half of the country. Yeah. And I was a NBA
are you
fan.
Becoming a political pundit now?
No, I'm not trying to. I'm just saying. I think you mentioned it earlier.
Yeah.
And one of the things that sports tend to bring us together, right? And races and politics and all that stuff. And it's about who's the best player or who's the best team. It's not about what color your skin is. Yeah. And I think sometimes when that gets brought up so much by an elite athlete who's super rich, and it's like, dude, you're kind of tone deaf to who's actually helping
who's watching these games. Yeah, that's interesting. So, man. So interesting conversation. Hopefully Joel Embiid gets, because he is legitimately a phenomenal player. Hopefully he gets back to healthy and can put together a bunch of consecutive seasons when he's fully healthy.
Well, and I don't think he will, though. I think this is going to be the trend.
Kind of habitual.
But I do think they can, again, set expectations by like, hey, this is the schedule for guys who will be out. And you can have maybe 1 or 2 because guys do get sick and there are things that happen.
Yeah, absolutely.
But maybe there's a fine to that too. There's got to be some consequences.
They've talked about fining teams for healthy scratches, essentially.
And now you can't even make the All-Star team if you don't play a certain percentage of games.
Yeah,
and I'm
sure nobody cares about that.
Unless there's if you're making so much money, if there's a bonus to it doesn't really matter. Yeah.
They probably prefer to the 3 days off or whatever it is. It seems like they always have a great time there and everything. They take care of them, but
yeah.
I mean, sometimes 3 days off in the middle of the year is
better than a little bit of money.
It's nice too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially when you're making that much.
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter. So hey, thanks for listening today. We appreciate it. The 50 and 15 challenge. We've got a couple days left. We picked up Rhode Island.
Yes.
Rhode Island, the smallest state, the ocean state they call it.
I didn't realize that.
The ocean state. I don't know why. I spent a summer in Pawtucket, Rhode Island. Really enjoyed my time.
What'd you think about it there?
Got to go to. I went to Newport.
Okay.
It's where like the Rockefellers and the Vanderbilts have like summer cottages, which were actually just like giant mansions. They're trying to outdo each other, but really cool to see it. You can do like a walking tour of the mansions and kind of walk in and see some of the
the Biltmore's famously in North Carolina.
Yeah, the Vanderbilt.
Did it kind of resemble any of those?
Yeah,
Did
it
you
was
feel
very
Yeah.
similar kind of feel to it. But again, these were their summer cottages, so they're not on the
smaller.
grand scale of the Biltmore, but yeah, very similar. Kind of a lot of just pomp and circumstance around it. It was really cool. But yeah, bro, it was cold, very cold at the vacation.
Cold early, nice during like June, July though.
Yeah, I like it to be warmer personally, but
Ooh, 95.
yeah.
The older I get, dude. As a player, I like 70 to like 84.
I like as a
But
player. I like
now,
90
and my
to 95.
kid loves 90, 95, and
Yeah.
I think that's kind of the weather, that your body actually.
That was
moves
my
well.
favorite. Yeah, that was my favorite to play baseball in for sure. And then, but yeah, got cold. In North Carolina in August, you're still
Nice. It's
t-shirts
still smoking.
and shorts. Yeah. By then, like in the evenings in Rhode Island, it's like, oh, time for a jacket. Like it was kind of wild. It was nuts, but something I'd never experienced in North Carolina, certainly growing up.
So which ones are we still missing, Paulie?
So we're missing Washington, Montana, Wyoming, New Mexico, Alaska, North and South Dakota, Iowa, Kentucky, Vermont, New Hampshire, and Connecticut. And Delaware.
Oh, Delaware. Joe Biden. You think we can get him on? Maybe to listen.
He's probably a big fan. Probably a huge fan.
He doesn't even know he's alive.
Maybe not. So hey, if you're listening, like what's going on, share it with your friends out there. We'd love it. We got a couple days left to knock out all these states. But hey, thanks for listening today. And if you watch us on YouTube, hey, comment in the comment section. Let us know what you think about load management, what some solutions are, how we can get the players on the court, and just your general thoughts. So thanks for listening today. We appreciate it.
Out. Go Pack.